Imagine a quiet neighborhood where families lived side by side, where children played in the streets and the sound of laughter echoed at sunset. Now imagine that same peace shattered overnight by a group that claimed authority they never truly had. This is the story of one family, an unsuspecting household that only wanted to live in peace, when suddenly their garage was rammed and their safety was threatened. What the intruders did not expect was courage. Courage that came not from adults but from a 13-year-old who refused to let fear control his home. This isn't just a story of a fake HOA. It's a story of bravery, justice, and a community learning never to underestimate the strength of a family's bond. Stick with this until the end, because what happens will leave you speechless and inspired. And when you hear how it all turned around, you'll realize why standing up for what's right is always worth it. It all started when the Smith family moved into their dream home. They had saved for years, planning each detail, imagining a fresh start away from the chaos of city life. The neighborhood seemed perfect. Green lawns, friendly waves, the kind of place where neighbors borrowed sugar and returned it with cookies. But perfection rarely lasts. Within weeks, flyers began appearing on their doorstep. At first, it was just strange notices. Community rules. New HOA guidelines. Pay your fees. The Smiths were confused. Their realtor had been clear. This neighborhood had no homeowners association. So who was sending these letters? They laughed it off at first, thinking it was a prank, until one day a letter came demanding payment of $500 for community maintenance. Alarm bells rang. The father, Mark, knew something was wrong. He started asking neighbors, but the responses varied. Some said they had been paying these fees for years, afraid of penalties. Others whispered that it was all a scam but didn't want to speak up. The Smiths refused to be intimidated. They ignored the fake letters, but ignoring them only made the so-called HOA angry. Days later, their mailbox was stuffed with threats. Final warning: you will regret this. We control this neighborhood. It was unsettling, but Mark and his wife, Sarah, decided not to show fear in front of their son, Ethan. They wanted him to feel safe, but Ethan was more observant than they realized. He noticed the tension in their voices at night, the way his mother double-checked the locks, the way his father kept his phone nearby. The pressure grew until one night, everything changed. It was 11:47 p.m. when the noise came. A loud crash shook the walls. Headlights cut across the living room window. Tires screeched. Mark rushed outside and froze. Their garage door had been rammed. A truck, its engine growling, had slammed into it deliberately. Men jumped out, shouting about HOA justice and rules being broken. Mark's heart raced. Sarah screamed for him to come back inside. The neighbors' lights flicked on one by one, but no one came out. Fear had silenced them all. Inside the house, Ethan's pulse pounded in his ears. He had never seen his parents so, but instead of freezing, he acted. Months earlier, for his birthday, his uncle had gifted him protective gear for paintball, body armor, a full helmet, and a bright orange airsoft marker. Ethan had practiced with it countless times, imagining himself as a hero. Tonight he decided he would be one. He slipped into the gear quietly. He pulled the helmet down, strapped on the vest, and grabbed the airsoft marker that looked more intimidating than it truly was. Then, with his heart hammering, he opened the door and stepped into the night. The men outside laughed as they banged on the garage door. "Come out and face us," one shouted. But their laughter stopped when they saw Ethan, a 13-year-old clad head to toe in armor, standing in defiance under the porch light. His small frame was hidden by the gear, his helmet visor reflecting their headlights. For a moment, he looked like a soldier, unshaken, unmovable. The men cursed under their breath. "What is this?" one muttered. Ethan's voice didn't crack. "Leave now. You're not real. You're a fake HOA and you don't belong here." His words carried, steady and clear. Mark, watching from the doorway, wanted to pull his son back, but something stopped him. This was not recklessness. This was courage born from love for his family. The fake HOA members, unsure of what to do, hesitated. Neighbors were recording now, phones pointed from windows. The once silent street had awakened. The men realized the tide was turning. They shouted threats, but their bravado had cracked. They backed toward their truck, muttering about next time, and drove off into the night. Silence settled, broken only by the sound of Ethan's breathing under the helmet. Sarah ran forward, pulling him into her arms, tears streaming down her face. Mark held them both, whispering, "You saved us." But the story didn't end there. The next morning, footage of the event spread online. Neighbors who had been silent for years now had proof. This HOA was fake, a group of bullies preying on fear. The police, pressured by the viral video, launched an investigation. It turned out that this HOA was nothing more than a few locals who had discovered they could collect thousands of dollars by pretending to have authority. Their scam had worked, until they messed with the wrong family. Ethan's bravery became the turning point. The neighborhood rallied. People came forward with receipts, emails, and threats they had received. Together, with the Smiths leading the charge, they dismantled the scam once and for all. But the most unforgettable part was Ethan's stand. News reporters came, eager to interview the kid in armor. He shyly explained, "I just didn't want them to scare my parents anymore." That single sentence touched hearts everywhere. And here's where the story rehooks. Because the aftermath wasn't just about victory over a fake HOA. It was about transformation. The neighborhood learned a powerful lesson. Silence enables bullies, but courage exposes them. Neighbors who had once avoided each other now formed bonds. They started real community meetings, not controlled by fear, but built on trust. The Smiths, once outsiders, became pillars of strength. Ethan, though only 13, was recognized as the spark that lit the fire of change. Yet through it all, he remained humble. "I'm not a hero," he'd say. "I just wanted to protect my family." But in the eyes of his parents, his neighbors, and the thousands who saw the story online, he was more than a hero. He was proof that courage doesn't come from size or age. It comes from heart. And just when you think the story slows down, here's the twist. Months later, one of the arrested HOA members tried to plead for leniency, claiming it had all been just business. The judge looked at him sternly and said, "You rammed into a family's home. You threatened children. That is not business. That is intimidation." Justice was served, and the family finally felt peace return to their home. Today, if you drive past the Smiths' house, you'll see a rebuilt garage door, stronger than before. You'll see neighbors waving freely, no longer living under fear, and sometimes you'll spot a boy riding his bike, his paintball gear tucked away, his smile unburdened. But in that same boy, if danger ever dared return, lies the same unshakable courage that changed everything. So what do we learn from this story? We learn that no matter how strong the opposition may seem, truth and courage are stronger. We learn that standing together makes bullies powerless. And most importantly, we learn that even the youngest among us can remind the world what it means to be brave. If this story inspired you, remember, silence allows injustice to grow, but courage stops it in its tracks. Never underestimate the power of standing up for what's right. And if you believe courage can come from anyone, at any age, share this story and remind others that bravery isn't about weapons or force. It's about heart, love, and refusing to let fear win.